Hello, Jo Alsop of Sable Studio Gallery. I've got something quite different today for the children. It's called Jojo Mouse Mini Motivators, and so I'm going to be painting a cartoon mouse. I thought all the children might like to get involved, so they can pause as and when they want to and continue with the drawing as we go through. I'm going to tell you a tale, right, about why it's called Jojo Mouse, okay? There was a very horrible boy at school, used to call me Ratty, and he used to call me Rat Face and be really nasty to me. And although I was quite upset by the name, I've actually become to like the name, and I do love mice for that reason. So I've tried to make something positive of it, and I collect them. And so every time I do one of the mini Jojo Mouse motivators, I'm going to show you one of my mice, one of the collection. And I want the children, if they would, to perhaps put in the comments an example of the painting that they've done, if they do complete it, and also their favourite little toy. Now, for the reason of the children being at home and bored, there's a lot of children out there that I do have a lot to do with, obviously, through teaching, some of the private students, but also I've got loads of nephews and nieces and so on. So I'm going to give a shout out to my little girls that come to me usually once a fortnight. We've got Esme and Lily, and then we've got our Daniel, we've got our Lily, we've got Rebecca, we've got Ava, Freya, we've got Will and Ronnie across the road that might want to partake. We've got Arabella, she might want to do a little bit of doodling. And then in France, we have also got Noah and Cesar and Luca. So in France, hello. So if you get to watch this and show them Jojo Mouse, I'm going to start with this picture here. Now then, this is Morris. Okay, show you. Now, Morris is M-A-U-R-I-C-E. And he is a little character which I invented years and years ago. And I would like to have a little book made about him and his wife Matilda at some point. And I do have somebody looking into that and perhaps doing that for me in the future. So Morris and Matilda have been around for many, many years. In fact, quite a few of the originals have sold in the past. And so I keep doing them in different outfits and doing different things. And so this is Morris, and I thought it was perfect because the rainbow, all those rainbows we've been seeing as well in the windows for all the staff going out and helping everybody right now. So I thought this is perfect for everybody to partake, and maybe you could put this one in the window as well. So we'll get started. Okay, so you'll see the back of my head a little bit as well, but we'll take the camera just this way a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing, okay? Right, so we're going to start as we did the other day. I did a pen to start with. I'm actually going to let the children use their pencil so that they can rub out if necessary. Okay, so to get the line in, you won't see it very well in the pencil, but then I'm going to go over with pen, so don't worry if you can't see it very well. All right, so if I'm looking at this picture here, I can see that the paper is actually landscape. And so my pads that I'm working on, I've got landscape as well. That way it's going to fit on better. It's quite square, to be fair, so you might fit it on if you wanted to do it portrait. But as this piece of paper is landscape, I thought it might be easier for you to follow. So looking at the picture, I can see that the rainbow is at the top, the head is in the middle of the rainbow, and then we've got the body following down and right to the bottom, and then we're going to do it as simply as we can for the children to manage this. And so we're not going to worry too much about the units as I would normally. We're just going to draw, and at the end of the day, if we get a nice little painting out of it, that's all we're after. We don't want perfection anyway. We don't need perfection. So here goes. I'm going to start with the rainbow at the top, starting at the top, drawing a rainbow with a HB pencil. Don't worry if the lines are scribbly. Okay, this is a nice little sketch that we can all do. Even the adults can do this, to be fair. So join in, and we've got the rainbow. And then I've got two circular ears going across for the top of the head, of distance of the ear, just about. So then doing the other ear there, and a scraggly little face. It's like a triangle with a big ball on the end of his nose. Scrawny, tiny little neck. And then he's got his little rain jacket on. So going to get his little rain jacket on. So there's the sleeves. You perhaps can't see this very well. I will hold it up in a second, but you just draw what you see, not what you think you see. Okay, and that will help you. Doesn't matter if it's different every single time you try. At least if you're doing your drawing every day for 5 minutes, you will definitely improve. Okay, so it's got really long arms that he's stretched out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers I've given him. I don't know if they have 5 fingers, it doesn't really matter, but mine has. This is Morris. His eyes are little spots, and sometimes when you get the spots in the wrong place, it does make him look quite funny. So you'll have to trial and error with that one. And then I'll do his little spots, ready for some little whiskers. And I do some scraggy whiskers coming off him. And he's got a curl on the top of his head. I'll just show you on that one there. Got a curl on the top of his head, scraggy whiskers that I'm talking about, scrawny little arms with 5. Well, there's a thumb and fingers, so there's definitely 5 on there. Lots of colours in the rainbow, lovely little jacket. You don't have to do a yellow jacket, yellow rain jacket. You could do it blue, you could do it green, any colour, your favourite colour. Pockets, he could have something in his pockets if you wanted to put something in his pockets. He's got his collar, little triangles there. Then his scrawny little legs sticking out of some big wellies. I've got big red wellies, I have. So again, you could change the colour. What colour are your wellies? Do the colour that you prefer. So we're in there with the wellies. And there he is. And then I've got some water, a puddle. And then I've got like little droplets splashing out. Splash, splash, splash is in the water. Little marks on the wellies to show where the light's reflecting. And I think, to be honest, the pencil drawing is there. Not one bit of rubbing out required. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm now going to be brave with a pen. Okay, so for anybody that isn't familiar with pen and wash, it traditionally is the pen first. And for this project, we are doing a water resistant pen. So not one that I used the other day on a video where it's water soluble. We're going to have one that's fixed so that when we wet it with the colour, it's actually going to stay put for us. And I've got a little rubber as well. You can't see this very well because it's tiny. It's called a kneadable putty eraser. It looks like blue tack. And the reason I use these is because it doesn't leave bits all over the paper, because if we brush the bits off, sometimes we spoil the picture. Okay, so that's ready to take off the pencil that I don't want on after I've done the pen. So working with the pen, I have my favourite trusty Microns, and I've got all different size nibs, lots and lots of different ones, but you could use any pen as long as it's water resistant. And the best way to try it is to actually write it down on a bit of scrap paper and then try and wet it and see what happens. I'm going to use a thicker nib today just because I think that you would see it better. So I'm going to use this thicker one. Okay, so in fact, let me just double check. I've got a fatter one. I've got a 0.8, that's quite big, and you might be able to see the drawing better. I will hold it up as well, but I'm literally going to go over the pencil marks that I'm happy with. Okay, so I'm going to go over the ear. I'm going to go over the head, but make it scribbly. I'm going to put that big curl on his head. I'm going to do the ear again, but then I'm going to put little markers in to suggest where the pink might go. Little bits of fur again. 2 big dots for the eyes. Do his little chops down to a triangle, big circle nose. Leave a little spot on it. Mark that out with your pen so that you can see where you need to avoid when you come to paint, because we are going to put a wash of watercolour on this. Okay, so here's Morris and his whiskers. 1, 2, squiggly 3. 1, 2 there and squiggly 3. And then we're going to do his scrawny little neck, his curve there to suggest where his neck, the collar is on there. And then 2 little triangles as well to finish that. His little jacket, and we can go over the sleeves, go over the whole of the jacket right down to the bottom. Don't worry if the lines are wiggly. Again, we're not doing perfection. We're doing a nice scraggy little Morris. He's got his 5 fingers there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoops, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we've got 5. That's okay. Little spikes coming off him, his little bits of scraggy fur, little bits of fur on the top of his head, perhaps a few bits. And we've got little hairs coming off his little legs as well. I'll show you in a second. So a few little scraggly hairs. These big red wellies. Lovely. Whoa. Leaving the light bits. I'm going to suggest 2 little marks on there to keep white on his wellies. I'll show you how to do that in a second. So we're doing all the bits that we did in the pencil now with a pen. I might put, how many buttons? They say odd numbers is good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with 2 little dots in between to suggest the little buttons on there. And he's ready, almost. We're just doing the rainbow. Now this is quite tricky. Don't worry about getting anything to draw around. Just do it freehand, be confident. So go over the pencil marks that you've already got. And I'm not going to mark out all the different colours with the pen. I'll mark out all the different colours with the actual paint. So I don't need to do lots of different marks in there because I want the colours to flow together as well, and I don't want that to be too heavy. So I'm almost ready. I'll show you. There's Morris. Okay, so he is almost ready. Can you see the pencil lines there? All those pencil lines now will rub out with the kneadable putty eraser or any rubber that you've got to hand. And I normally try and suggest to people to go in one direction. That way you don't crease the paper either, because if you're rubbing backwards and forwards really, really fast and hard, you're going to crease your paper and spoil it. So I'm just going to rub over lightly the areas, and I lift off every time and just rub out as much of the pencil as I can. Don't worry if you don't get it all off, because some of the paint will actually physically cover the pencil marks. Some people don't like to see pencil marks, but I don't mind. I think it adds to movement on the piece. Gives it a nice little flow. So there we go. I'll show you close up again. You might see little odd bits of pencil still, but we don't mind a couple of little bits because, like I said, they'll get lost in the painting process. So here we go, he's ready. There. Nice and clean and tidy. Right then, so what are we going to do? We're just going to go for it. We're going to use a couple of brushes. Probably the bigger ones are going to be better for me today. I've got my daddy and my mummy brush, but if you've only got one brush, that will be fine. You don't need loads of brushes. You don't need loads of colours either. These are watercolours, and this is watercolour paper. If you have got this type of paper, watercolour paper, you're going to get a better result. If you do it on printer paper, sketch paper, it's going to cockle and it will go through the paper. You don't get such a good result, but don't worry if that's the paper that you've got, just do it nice and light. Perhaps don't use as much water. All right, so I'm going to dip in clean water and I'm going to slather it all over my Morris. All over the areas that I want to do first, which are going to be grey. Okay, so that is for Morris, that's his colour. And so how do we make grey? So that's a tricky one, but I'll give you a clue. You might already have black that you could water down, so watering the black down with using the paper will make it a grey. Okay, but otherwise I do prefer to dip into my paints. I'm going to use a dark blue and I'm going to mix a dark brown, and that has given me a really, really nice grey. Don't know if you can see that there. Okay, let's hold it up. show you on that palette there, we've got a lovely grey. That was using blue and brown together. So if you haven't got a grey, that's how you can make your own. Just add the two colours together in a little palette and there you have grey. And if it's too dark, transfer a little bit over to another plate or another well in your palette and then add plenty of water to dilute it. Bearing in mind that you've wet the mouse as well, so that will also dilute it. So I'm going to drop in wet on wet. Because I'd already wet it with the water, clean water, and then I'm dropping in a wet wash, that is known as wet on wet. Now, I go over the lines. I don't know if you do or you want to go in the lines and do it really, really tight and neat. That's entirely up to you, but my style is quite loose. And so I don't mind going over the lines, that's quite acceptable. I'll show you the end one where that's happened as well, so you'll be able to identify where he is a bit scruffy. So if you look at the droplets, okay, I've gone over the lines. I often go over the lines. Look at the mess of his ears, actually the pink inside is gone elsewhere, but I don't mind about that. So I would suggest don't mind about it too much, don't worry. Okay, so because he's very, very wet, okay, if I was to start painting his jacket or his wellies, they would all bleed and make it all mucky, okay? So whilst that's calming down and drying, I'm going to move to another part of the painting whereby it's not going to affect anything. So where shall we go? The rainbow. All right. Now with the rainbow, I've got to make sure that my brush is really, really clean because there's no grey in there. We're doing all the bright colours to make everybody feel good. So we've got reds, oranges, yellows, purples, blues, greens, all of those look gorgeous. And look how they're messed together. We don't care about that as long as we've got the colours in. So I'm going to start at the top with a nice red. Now it doesn't matter about the fancy colours that you see. You choose your favourite red. It could be a pinky red. So I could go pinky red at the top, look, like that. Add some more colour. And then I'm going to go a cadmium red. So that's more like an orangey red looking. And it's bleeding into my pinky red. And that's fine as well. Wash the brush out now and again so that it keeps the colours clean. But we still don't mind the colours merging together. It's still managing to suggest that the colours are separate. In a way, they have merged together, but you can still see the two colours. I'll show you closely in a moment. So I'm going to go orange in there, little smidgen of orange. Pick some more colour up if it's not dark enough, look. We can go orange all the way around, wiggly line, it doesn't matter. Clean the brush out. I'm going to go yellow. I'm going to go a nice bright yellow. There we go, it's coming, and it might mingle with the orange, which I want it to do, don't mind. There we go, and then I'm going to go green. Hope I can fit them all on. I've got a green here that I've mixed up. Sometimes you've got greens that you're not really happy with in your palette, and so if there's a green that you don't like the colour of, may I suggest that you use that green and then add a little touch of yellow to it. Or try an alternative of a blue and a yellow mixed together, and that's how you make green anyway. And so you can try different options till you get your favourite looking green. Okay, so I've mixed a bit of yellow to this one because it wasn't bright enough for me. So to brighten the green up, I've added more yellow to it. It's beautiful limey coloured green. Gorgeous, look at that. Okay, and then I've got a lovely blue in here anyway, so I can just use the blue that I've got, which is an ultramarine. So that ultramarine blue is coming in. I'm running out of space. So I'm going to do one last colour on this one, and that's going to be the purple underneath. And just to fit in that gap, it won't matter if it comes over the lines. That one's gone over the lines at the top, which I'll show you in a moment, but this will be my last colour on that. So I'm going to do the purpley colour. Now if you haven't got a purple, I've got loads of different colours in my palette, look, and I've done a test piece of paper to remind me which is which. So I have actually got a purple in there, and it's called Violet, this one, and it's gorgeous. So here comes Violet. Nice name. If your name's Violet, all the old-fashioned names are coming back in. Morris has been around for years and years. Oops, I've dropped my bit of paper, but it doesn't matter. Okay, right. Here we go, a bit more purple on there. I'm going to show you close up what's happened, okay? And you might be worried about what's happened, but I love the pattern that's on the rainbow. Look at that. We've got what are known as blooms, where colours have mingled and merged together and created a back run, a bit of a cauliflower shape, and that is a technique with watercolours of which some people love and some people hate, but I love them, and I do them deliberately as well. So if I can't get them naturally, I'll drop in clean water to try and create those. Okay, now, which sensibly is the next area we're going to go to? Bearing in mind, he is still wet, look how wet he is. I'm moving the paint around, look, and you can see he's still really quite wet. So I think the best place to go is his wellies, okay? Not his wellies, sorry, got that wrong. Not his wellies, and I've missed a line there, so I'm going to put that in. Come on, use this pen. There's a little line in there. But the water that he's in, his wellies are splashing in the water, so that's the colour I'm going to go to next. So using the mummy brush, a bit of a smaller brush, a bit more control, I'm going to choose my favourite blue. So I'm going to go in again with the ultramarine that I've already used, and if you've already used a colour and then you use it elsewhere, that brings a painting together. Okay, so if you can have colours that are similar, all the same, that unifies a painting, and so it makes it look really attractive. So I'm going to go with the same ultramarine blue in the bottom here, under his Wellingtons, around his Wellingtons, not too wet because I want it to dry quite quickly so that you can carry on with this. I'm going over the lines again, not bothered about that, and dropping in darker bits as well, because let me show you the original. You can see that there are darker bits under usually where somebody would be stood. So if you put something on a surface, there's normally a bit of shadow underneath, and if you tread on something, you normally see bits of shadow. So I've actually got darker elements of blue in there. You can do that now. You don't have to wait for it to dry to do it again. Over the top, which is known as a glaze, if it dries and you go over the top is a glaze, but if you do it now, it's wet, and so therefore it will still be wet on wet that I've been using. So I'm actually darkening underneath the Wellingtons. I might do another drop or two there. Okay, so if you wanted to help it dry faster, I've got a tip for you. Okay, now children obviously without an adult being there ideally shouldn't be using a hairdryer where there's water, so you know that, but we artists do use hairdryers to help the drying process, although watercolours do dry very, very quickly. But the tip I'm going to give you in order for yours to dry quicker is to perhaps use your brush, squeeze out, no such word, but we're going to squeeze out the brush, okay, so that it acts like a little sponge. And if I touch it on certain parts of him where he's absolutely too wet, look, if I touch it there, it's took that paint out. It's took it out, the big droplet really, not took the paint away as such, it's just lightened it. It's actually on this, it's on the brush. So each time, even still now, look, it's taking up that liquid, and that will help your painting dry faster. Okay, so that will help so that we can move to the next bit. I think mine's dry enough anyway to start the other element, so I'm going to get us started with that. But you might want to make it dry naturally. So if you open the doors, leave it to dry naturally, it does look nicer. Okay, so I'm just doing it faster for you so that you can have a look and not get too bored, hopefully not. And I need to say, please, when you've done these paintings, if you do them and you do partake, can you show me them in the comments So get your mum or dad to take a photograph and upload them into the comments. Also, what I would like the children to do is to show me their favourite little toy just by, you know, taking a photograph on their hand or taking a photograph of the item sat somewhere, maybe by the painting. It doesn't have to be a mouse, your favourite thing, and put that in the comments as well. I'd love to see what your favourite things are. It could be a toy, ornament, whatever it is. All right, so we're going to continue because we're nearly finished. I'm going to go in now with a pink. Right, how to make pink. If you have red with white, that makes pink, all right? But with watercolours, we don't use white. We use the paper as the white. So what you would do is you would water down your red to dilute it, and by applying it onto the white paper makes it appear pink, because the white of the paper and the diluted pigment will make that tint for you. That's what it's known as, a tint. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to make sure there's not too much red on my brush, which I've just made sure on the palette, and I'm going to drop that into the ears. Careful if it's wet, just avoid the wet, and then it's not going to run everywhere. So I've managed to get the pink in there. Let me show you what I've done. Okay, there's a little bit of pink in his ears, and that's all I need for the pink. So I can now wash my brush out. If I don't wash the brush out, the pink and the yellow will mix together and make it dirty. So I'm going to use just clean yellow. Right, so clean that palette off. It was a bit dirty from before, so I get that on the brush, and I can go over the buttons because the buttons are going to be darker. Okay, so you don't have to avoid the orange buttons if you're doing them orange. You can go over all of it. Okay, so I can colour him all in on his little rain jacket. Going over the lines if you want to, it's not a problem. Just fill it all in, and I even leave white areas here and there. Don't fill it all in completely, but you can go over it as much as you want. Like I said, if you want to go really neat, you can. But there's his yellow jacket. And on the original one, I actually put little bits of orange on the pockets, on the collar, and on the buttons. Now you can see that when I've done that, they've run over the edges again. They've not really gone in the exact place. So that's just how I work, is quite scruffy. And so that's okay if you want to work scruffy. But if you wanted to do them neat, you would wait for this jacket to dry, and then you would apply an orange on the pockets and the buttons and the collar or whatever you want to do. Okay, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go straight in with the orange, and it will apply some little bits of wet on wet. So the orange is here. Might add a bit of red to the orange. If you add a bit of red to the orange, it makes it a darker orange. So there's lots of ways of making loads of different colours just from a few colours. I'm going to put orange in the collar, under his arms a little bit because he'd have shadow there. Orange on the pockets. Add a little bit of water to get that moving around a little bit, and then dot orange in the buttons. Okay, maybe a slight bit of orange on the underside of that jacket as well, just to give a little bit of a shadow. Show you where we're at. So it's made it from yellow to yellowy orange. Look how wet he is still. So don't try and hold it up too much and spoil it and get it running. Okay, that's fine. We've nearly finished our little Morris Mouse. Okay, I'm dead excited. Right, so going to go again with the not too small brush, my mummy brush, and I'm going to have red Wellingtons, and it's dry enough now. To be fair, it's dry enough now to actually go on those. You just got to watch the watery bit, the puddle that he's in, because that's still a little bit damp. So I'm going to try and avoid touching that if I can, but you're okay because you can let yours dry. You've got plenty of time, let's face it, to let it dry and do it properly. And I'm just doing it a faster way so that you can see how quick you can produce all these cartoons. Loads of different cartoons. Make up your own characters. You know all the famous ones anyway, but we can make our own up. Got loads of time to make our own up and perhaps put them in a story. Yeah. So there's his red wellies. Show ya. Come in. There. He's looking good, hopefully. Right then, there's a few finishing touches I would put on this, and that is I go back in, even though he's damp on the grey parts. Even though it's damp, I go back in with the grey, but a darker pigment. So that would mean more of the colours, less of the water. So I've made it quite dark there, look. And then I'm going to touch a little patch in onto his head. Let's get it slightly darker actually, hold on. There we go, that might be better. I'm just going to drop in a little bit of darker, because when you see things, they're not just one tone. You know, so something might be grey, but it will have light bits of grey, mid bits of grey, very dark grey. And especially if there's a curve, perhaps, or a little mark at the top of the head, or in his neck, or by his arms where they're touching. I think I've overdone it, to be fair. So what we'll do, if that happens to you, look, see what's happened, he's gone too dark. I will do what I did earlier. That is get my little brush, clean out the brush, squeeze, and then this is the little trick where you can pull and take off that dark bit. It's gone too dark, so I can move it around, look, calm it down. I've gone over the line there, it won't matter. There we go, and just calm it down. But then what's on the brush, I can put into the other areas that needed to be slightly darker, where his legs are touching his coat, look, like that, or near the top of the wellies, put darker bits in like that. That's better, much better, look, he's nearly done. The red's dripped into the puddle, and may I suggest you leave that though. You could lift it out if you don't like the mess of the red that has ran into the blue, but if we're honest, whenever we're in a puddle, the reflections and the light do cast off what we're wearing. So sometimes your red wellies will be reflecting into the puddle. So I'm going to leave that. That looks okay. And then I'm on the last bit now, where I'm just going to touch in a little bit more stronger red on the Wellingtons. Okay, so a little bit of red, side of the wellies, because they'd be darker, I think. And then his nose. Right, okay, so rather than doing it too heavy with the pen and scrubbing it in with black heavy, I'm going to use the same grey that I've used for him, but much darker pigment. So that is pure pigment. There's hardly any water this time. It's just the two colours mixed, look, together. There's no water in it, not like the other one. There's hardly any water, just enough to make that lovely bluey grey that we've made ourselves. Might add a touch of water on the brush, the tip of the brush, just to help move it around, but you'll see if you're careful, you can keep that little spot on his nose where the light's reflecting, and there's his nose. Instead of too heavy, we have it looking a little bit more like a round ball rather than a solid ball. So I just lift out a little highlight there as well. Okay, so I'm going to show you now. I have actually finished Morris. Morris with the rainbow. When you finish yours, please do put it up in the window, and do show me though first. Take a photograph, get your parents to upload it so that we can see what you've done. And I'll be doing more of these Jojo Mouse mini motivators. I'm from Sable Studio Gallery. Some of you know me. I'm a professional artist working from home at the moment and trying to keep you encouraged with your drawing and painting. So keep at it and keep me informed. See you soon. Bye bye.